Welcome to Truth and Company Boxing Podcast for another segment of 20 Random Questions. I'm your host, John the Truth Dioria, and today's guest is professional bare knuckle boxer and former champion Fernando Gonzalez. How you doing, Fernando?
I'm doing great, man. Just got done doing a walk with my wife and just chilling now.
So
Having fun.
your wife's not the one that bruised up your eye, though, right? That was just a fight you had recently.
Yeah, you asked twice.
So tell me about that. Tell me about your fight. It was your second fight with BKB, right? And it was in your hometown.
Yeah, no, it's an up and coming promotion. One of our top guys actually just fought last night. Mike Perry just fought Jake Paul, so it was a crossover fight. It went the way I thought it was going to go. He didn't really give himself enough time to prepare for it, but he went out there and he fought his ass off regardless. So, but anyway, as far as us on BKFC here at Pachanga, the card was stacked. It was a bunch of guys actually that I either trained with or trained under me. And man, it was cool to see all these guys on the card. And we all went out there and performed well. So more likely, we're going to be seeing a lot more BKFC here in Temecula at Pachanga.
So how much? I mean, because you look like you're in pretty good shape. The fight went really well. How much longer do you think you're going to do this?
For me, they put age limit on it. For me, it's always been more like once that hunger's gone, that happens. It comes and goes. Like, I mean, for me, like it kind of started going away a little bit, and then when my dad passed away, obviously that pain and that anger comes, with it. So I learned how to channel it in the right way, and it definitely gave me the hunger to get back in there and kick the shit out of somebody.
Nice. So now, even though you just got done with a fight, are you back in the gym training? Is there any plans for another fight before the end of summer?
Yeah, I'm already training. That, like I said, that's the fight is just kind of the cherry on top. I'm always training. I'm always working. I need to keep my mind busy. I need to stay focused and stay active on what I need to do to kind of, channel my energy in the right way. BKFC gives me that outlet to go out there and perform and let it go the way I need to. And, obviously, like I said, I'm always training. I always got to kind of always stay active and stay busy. There's things that you can always do to be improving, even when especially after a fight. I'm sore as shit. I could barely throw my arms. And so, like, I'm a mixed martial artist, realistically. I've been doing MMA 20 years. So now that I'm kind of resting, I'm throwing my kicks, I'm throwing my knees. My knee got a little jarred up in the fight, but so I'm not really doing my rolling just yet. But as soon as I'm able, I actually kind of probably start rolling this week. So, yeah, just doing other things to stay active and keep my body moving. But yeah, I love MMA, and obviously, like I said, I love bare knuckles, allowing me to have that outlet right now.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to these random 20 questions. Question 1. Tell me about your background and your upbringing a little bit. Nothing to do with fighting. Just talk to me about where you were brought up, your parents, siblings, things like that.
So I grew up here in Menifee, California. I was born in Escondido, so it's San Diego County. We moved in this area pretty much since I was 5. I think before that was Fallbrook. We were there for a little while. And then from there, we moved to Menifee area here. So I pretty much just grew up here. The whole area really in this area, like Temecula, Murrieta, Lake Elsinore, it's all like a wrestling towns. And then we would do boxing, since obviously in that time was like Julio Cesar Chavez and stuff like that. So I've been actually fighting all my life. They put me in boxes. I'm 6 years old.
And I want to get to that I want to get to that in the next question. Yeah. So do you have siblings too?
Yeah, I have a brother and a sister, and So yeah, we all kind of grew up doing the same thing.
So,
But
are they involved in combat sports as well?
my sister not anymore, but she grew up boxing with us. My brother's he's my corner. He's been cornering me pretty much my whole career, and since he's the one who actually got me into boxing, um, he would drive me to the spots, and basically once he had his license, he was the one taking me to the tournaments and stuff like that. So yeah, he's
Okay.
been pretty much with me all my career.
All right. And question two. So some people might not be aware. Your fans, they know you have been in MMA a long time, and I want to get to that too. But how did you get involved in boxing and then MMA? Because a lot of people don't know you actually started in boxing.
Yeah, I was through my brother. So in the area here, there wasn't too many Hispanics in the area, so we're like the first ones. So in the beginning, we used to get like jumped and shit like that. So my brother and my mom, they were like, let's start doing boxing, learn how to defend yourself, and so that's pretty much how it started. And then I had like family and stuff move in, so all that stuff died down, and a lot of I mean, you're a kid, you know what I mean. So when you would scrap it out, a lot, especially in the area, like if you threw down and you didn't back down, like you actually became friends with that person back in the day. So that's kind of how it was. Like a lot of the guys I got into fights with when I was younger, we ended up being really good friends down the line, and we're still involved in each other's lives now. Like it's still a small area, a small community, and the ones that have stayed, like we still kind of talk and we still run into each other. A lot of them come watch my fights. They were here at Pachanga for this one. Obviously, the ones that moved out of state would watch it online, but they're still supporting me and they still show the love. So it's kind of cool that throughout the years we've still remained friends.
So now I read that you went to the gym for the first time or whatever when you were around 5, right? So your brother, he was already in the gym boxing?
So my brother and my uncles, they always like put on the fights for us. My uncle is like my brother's age. He's like a year older than my brother, and that's the youngest of from my mom's side, of my mom's siblings. And so they always they started boxing first, and then from there, my mom would get out of work and then take us to the gym, and that's how I started because through my brother, he's the one who got it in, started going first, and then after that, we all kind of joined him. So like that's pretty much it's always been like either that or before that it was like I think it was karate. One of my cousins was doing he was all into Bruce Lee, so he started doing karate out of Fallbrook. And so like we always kind of had like a kickboxing experience because he would kick us, but we learned how to box so that we knew the footwork. Because in that time, that era was like Julio Cesar Chavez was huge in that time. So for us that was like our hero, So we really needed to know how to box well, and that was like one of our main inspirations back then. And so that's the route we went with boxing. But we were always into like also with kickboxing, Bruce Lee, and like I said, the local area here was always wrestlers. So pretty much every street fight that I got in ended up on the ground somehow. So I was like doing MMA before it was MMA. And once they made it a sport, it just made it easy for me to jump in.
So now how much amateur experience as a boxer did you have before you ended up transitioning more into the MMA stuff?
Well, it's different back then because a lot of it was smokers. Like they didn't really have the tournaments all the time, like for us to travel to. And so we were with Paris Boxing Gym for a long time, and then from there we went to the Hemet Boxing Gym. Once one of our trainers had moved away, so then we ended up going to the Hemet one. But then after a while, just traveling that far all the time, it didn't make sense. We didn't have the money for it. So then after that, it was just smokers. After that, for pretty much since I think I had like 6 fights, maybe amateurs that are on record. And I think it was like 6. And
Now
then
for the fans that don't know what a smoker is, explain that.
so a smoker fight is basically like it's not sanctioned. So like it's so the sanctioning bodies would be like California State Athletic Commission. They come and run the show. When it's a smoker, it's just a house gym putting on a show, and they're going to invite other gyms to come into the gym and spar, and pretty much it's a fight. You're going without a sanctioning body. You just weigh each other out, or like, hey, you're big enough, he's big enough. Like, do you want it? And you just go in
It
there.
just doesn't go under your USA book.
Yeah, no, those don't. Yeah, but you learn so much more in those fights because sometimes, like, if you have the energy, you're gonna go twice if you want. They're not gonna care.
So then, tell me
just
how did you get into the MMA field then?
I was living in Idaho when MMA came out, and so again, there was a lot of wrestling out that way, and so when I came back to California, I finished out my high school playing football. I always wanted to play. So as soon as I was done, I was so used to contact and hitting people that I was like, I need something to do. And I was working at Canyon Lake Fitness and right here in Canyon Lake. Um, it's a gym down here. Someone was passing out flyers for the fights of King of the Cage that they were doing at Sabova. And from there, the guy that gave me the flyer, his name was Jason List. And I was like, dude, where can I do this at? And he's like, well, there's a gym right up the street that are helping fighters do MMA. So the next day I was over there, and his name's Steve Harriman. Still really good friends with him. He's running actually one of the gyms, Fight Syndicate here in Temecula or in Menifee, through my buddy Bo King. So he's the one who originally got me into fighting. When I went to his gym, he held pads for me, and him and Victor Galindo. They're like, hey, if you're serious about fighting, we'll sponsor you. And because I already had the boxing experience for that long, and I was comfortable with sparring and fighting. I was already had a lot of smokers, so I was just comfortable with fighting already. And so when they were like, look,
okay, go ahead.
I said when they said if you're into it, we'll sponsor you and we'll take care of you. So they got me linked up with Chris Brennan, and for the first 4 years of my career, they helped me and sponsored me for those first 4 years, and so I was able to afford it myself. Chris would let us fight, and then with the money we'd make from the fights, we'd pay him back and stuff like that. So,
but somewhere along the line, you got into Muay Thai too, and ended up becoming a cruiserweight champion, right?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was always into the striking, and so with my boxing, and then I started picking up the kickboxing. But then I was like running into problems with, so I would always fight at 185, and they would take the fights with me because I was shorter. I'm 5'9", so they were like, we're gonna beat them up, and I'm a little pudgier at that weight. 170, I look a little better, but at 185, I look pudgy. I'm not ripped, but it's not about being ripped. It's knowing how to fight, So after a while, I actually won a title at 185, and nobody wanted to fight me no more. And so for a long time, at least in the local area, I couldn't fight any fights or anybody that would risk that loss. And so I was training with Bob Chaney, who passed away a couple years ago. I was training with Master Bob Chaney, and he said, "Look, let's stay active. Let's put you in some Muay Thai fights." And I think at that time I already had probably close to 20 fights in MMA, and so from kid to 20 fights, I was comfortable with jumping in and fighting anybody. So then he started putting me into kickboxing. We were able to travel to China, fought out there, and that's how I was able to get the WBC title fight. Dennis Warner thought I had won that fight out there, and it was just more so because of we were fighting in China. I had to kill the guy to win. but it was a good fight regardless. The guy came to fight, but it was crazy. It was a great experience. I got to travel to China, obviously, and it was like almost like a K1 show. It was on TV, and we did well. So, Dennis Warner thought I won the fight. That's how I was able to get the fight for the WBC national title, and I was able to beat Cowboy Harris. Caught him with a clean liver shot, and then a knee to the head, and that was it. I was able to get that belt. It was cool.
Nice. All right. Well, question 3: do you have any hobbies outside of combat sports?
I'm actually starting to swim more, just because my body feels better. But same thing. It's just more like to relax my head, stay busy, and obviously, when I was younger, I was never good at swimming, so it's another thing. Like I was like, all right, I gotta check that off the list and make sure I do it or learn how to do it right. And so that's another thing that I've kind of been doing more so. And so yeah, swimming, and then I love fighting. So that's anything that has to do with fighting. I'm game planning, and I'm working it out in my head of how to incorporate it into my tools. But
all right.
my wife and my son, chilling with them too.
Okay. Question 4: do you have any fighting superstitions?
Yes, but like for me, with fighting, it's always spiritual for me. So yeah, superstition is because I feel the spiritual side of it. Like I said, when I was younger and I had a couple of those boxing fights, the main thing that drew me into fighting when I was a kid, I told this to family obviously, but I'll tell it to you. I had almost like an out of body experience in one of those fights when I was throwing down with this kid. He actually ended up winning the Golden Gloves later on, and I didn't get to go and compete in the Golden Gloves that time. But I fought this kid, and I'm fighting him, and in my head, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew exactly what he was going to throw, but I was watching myself do it. Like I was literally outside of my body, watching myself do the movements, and so ever since then, it's almost like I've been chasing that feeling again. It was just a crazy experience that I went through in that when I was younger, and so ever since then, it's just something that I've been chasing, and I think that's kind of why I try to challenge some of the toughest fights. Like people think I'm crazy, and they're like, you shouldn't ask for that guy. I think what the type of fighter that you need to get to that level where it's kill or be killed, you need to really put yourself in that zone. Your body kind of reacts to it, and it's like that ultimate adrenaline rush, or like for me, like I always said, like how surfers, they're always chasing that one wave, that big wave, or that feeling that they felt that one time. That's how I feel with fighting. I'm always chasing that. And I know with a killer, I'm gonna experience it. I'll be able to get to there, and perform at that level.
Okay, question 5: who has been your favorite opponent in your career?
My favorite opponent would be Marius Romskis. I think that fight, me and him, we just battled it out the whole fight, and it was like one of those same feelings too. But I wasn't out of body. I was completely present, and I could think. Everything was like, he's gonna do this, counter this, So everything was on at that moment. But that was probably my favorite fight, just because of that feeling. It was close to where I was close to that feeling of when I was a kid, but it was like different. I was more in control.
All right, question 6: what's the craziest or the funniest story that ever happened between you and a combat sports fan?
Combat sports. I don't know about I wouldn't know about funny, but like it was different. We fought in Grozny, Russia, so that was the only time I ever felt like okay, this is different as far as like I've experienced like Bellator and all that. The fans they're invested in you. They're like, hey, high five. But when I fought in Grozny, Russia, it was like we were the Beatles. Like they were like grabbing us, like they just wanted to touch us, you know, like we were like gods to them almost. It was crazy, and I've never experienced that ever. So it wasn't like for me, it was a funny experience because I'm just me and it's fighting, but the way they acted towards us was like if we were like the craziest, like the superstars of like they've never seen anybody, you know, and it was really really cool to see and experience that feeling of how invested and how dedicated they are to the fighters and to like celebrate us almost.
Okay. Question 7. What's the best advice you've ever gotten from another MMA fighter, and who was it?
Another I would say probably, so I don't know, it wasn't like advice, it was more like direction. So I always followed Randy Couture, Dan Henderson. So when I started WEC back in the day, Randy Couture was bringing in Chris Lieben to fight there back in the day. So I started in that time just before Chris Lieben got into the Ultimate Fighter. So it was crazy because like I seen Matt Lindland, and he had like one of the caps, you know what I mean? So I always wear the cap. I don't know, it just kind of stuck with me, and I always liked it. But he had one of the caps, and he just reminded me of like the old school boxers back in the day. And so it always kind of stuck with me. And then once I got my ears, I was like, that shit fits me perfect. So then I started using those. But I was getting ready for a fight, and I was like, I really needed to learn my wrestling. And Randy Couture was there, and I was like, look, I would love to come and train with you guys. Obviously, he was in Oregon, so I wasn't going to be able to make it out there. And he was like, look, you're a great fighter. You look like you can, you could do well. Go to Temecula. How far is Temecula from you? From Menifee? And I was like, Temecula, that's my hometown almost. It's like a town away or 2 towns away. And he's like, Dan Henderson's out of that gym or out of that area. Go and train with Dan Henderson and learn from Dan, and he'll get you far. And so it wasn't so much like I would say that's the best advice that I ever took or got, because then it set me on my path to where I am now.
All right, question 8. If you could have a conversation with one person from history, who would it be?
From history, I would say probably my great grandfather. There was a lot of stuff like I got to meet him. But I didn't get like at those ages they have different type of wisdom, and so if anything it would be my great grandfather. He raised my dad, and so I would try to learn as much as I could from him. I would that's what I would want.
Okay, question 9. What's something that you're very passionate about besides fighting?
Being happy. Like I said, I lost my dad, and when you lose somebody like that, the more for me is just being happy and enjoying my life. Obviously, right now, fighting is doing that for me, and when I can, I'm chilling with my wife and my son. And my son's 18 now, so just seeing him grow up and trying to like still instill some of the values that I was taught. He's a good kid, regardless. He's a really good kid. But those are the things that I think for me now that I'm like a little bit older, is that stuff that makes more sense to me now. Like you just try to stay happy and positive. And if there's people that are being negative, I was like, I wish you all the best, and I just kind of separate myself from that. Like anything. There's a book that says this too shall pass. So eventually they'll get over it, and we'll be friends again.
Okay. Question 10. Have you ever had an incident where you thought you were going to die?
A couple times. a couple different times. But it's just a lot of even with the fighting. So I wasn't like I knew it was an issue. Like when we fought in when we fought in Russia, it was like that hostile feeling because we were fighting for the president of Chechnya. Um, so we were fighting for his. It was his birthday, and so it was hostile because they had guns and shit, and everything was like just because it was going to be for him. So they were obviously being more cautious. But one of the guys on that car, he didn't make it home. He passed away when he was out when we were out there. He fought. It was a hard fight. He wasn't attended right away, and by the time they got him to the hospital, he had passed away. So that was as far as fighting. It put a different type of feeling and fear. Also, I know what I have to prepare myself for, and especially with this type of fighting. Like you're gonna fight guys that are obviously there's a lot of guys coming from Russia, and they're gonna go. They're literally going for the kill. So they're gonna go and fight till they pull you off or they pull him off. So you have to be mentally prepared for that if you're gonna be in the sport. And that was definitely an eye opener for me. And obviously, when I'm in the gym and I'm preparing myself, you have to put your mind in a different place. So I know how to do that, and sometimes I'm really really quiet in the gym because of it. So I'm not trying to be like an ass or anything. It's just you have to train to put your mind there, because if you have to go there, it's better him than you. So that's kind of my mentality. I don't ever like think I want to kill somebody. That's not my thing. But there's guys that come in there to hurt you like that, and you got to be ready for it.
Okay. All right. Question 11. Can you tell me an interesting story out of your fighting career? Any type of story that the fans might not know.
So when I was fighting with Master Cheney, that the one that I was talking about in China, it was cool. Like that was another like one of those experiences that you only get to do maybe once in your lifetime. So we went to go visit the Shaolin temples after the fights, and so we're on our way to the Shaolin temples, and just nature in itself, like it's so beautiful. But like the way that mountain was, it was like the mountain was like here, the cloud was like right here, and there was like so much more mountains still going. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. And then so we get to the temples, and everything's like pretty much like they built it all by hand, So it was just different to see all that stuff. And for me, it's like a lot of the fighting has to do with spiritual, and so it's something that they would probably not know, or if they do know, it's for me it's very spiritual, and like getting to enjoy things like that and travel the world and go to these like landmarks of like like the Shaolin temples. It's crazy. Like they had where they were training, they were stomping, and there's indentations in stones of all the over years and decades of them stomping on those stones.
Wow.
And it was crazy. It's so cool to see. I was able to do like a prayer, like a candle prayer, where I kind of wished for all this. Where I was like, I pray to make it big on TV and stuff like that. And I think throughout my career, I've been able to do a lot of that. I still feel like I have more to do, but like I've accomplished a lot in my career, and I think it has to do a lot with me being able to pray for it and kind of manifest it. Because if you put your action towards something, it'll come about. Like the more you actually walk and put action towards it, it'll start to play out in your life.
Okay. Question 12. Who was the hardest puncher you've ever faced in the ring or the cage in a fight or sparring?
I would say Terry Sokajid, Dan Henderson, Uh, I would say those are two the hardest punches I've ever been hit by. Um, but yeah, I would say those two guys were, and it was both inspiring. But some of
Okay.
those gym fights or gym wars were pretty brutal.
All right, question 13. If you died and were reincarnated as an animal, what animal would you come back as?
Shit. um, I ain't gonna. I'd probably be an eagle. I want to fly. You know what I mean? I want to be free. So, and those are pretty badass. So they're gonna be if they're on the top of the food chain as far as birds. I'll probably go with that.
Okay. Question 14. Have you suffered any injuries due to fighting?
Yeah, but thank God it hasn't been major injuries. At least that some hurt me where like I feel like it hindered some of my performances, but it's been able to heal throughout the years where it's like I chose to fight, so I knew it was a possibility that I might have lost if I took the fight. So I never really got bothered by the injuries. I always knew like if I did take the fight, that was on me, and it's because I thought I could still win. So, but even then, the majority of the fights that I've lost, it's like them trying to dry hump me on the ground. They'd take me down and hold me. They never really wanted to strike with me, or at least once they got striking with me, then they learned that they didn't want to do that. And I'm very confident in my striking skills, and that's why I don't mind. Like I did a kickboxing fight with Paul Daly, and for me, he was actually a power puncher, but he never really hit me. He did more kicks than punches, and the ones that he did try to hit me with, I made a miss. So as far as other fighters that hit hard, it would have been those other two guys.
So, but what injuries have you suffered in your career, though?
So my cauliflower ears. Yeah, I had like one scar here, now this scar here. When you're rolling in jiu-jitsu, sometimes they'll go for leg locks and shit like that. So little sprains, like stuff like that. But it's nothing. Like I said, thank God, it's nothing that has been major that affected me. A lot of guys in the gym got injured throughout the years, like blown out knees, like pinched neck. They would pinch their neck, and then they would have to get like surgery in the neck. So I've seen a lot of injuries, and I think I would always like someone would get injured and I would learn from it, or I would get a stupid injury. Like one time I popped a rib or something like that. I blew a rib out, and I was like having to take care of that, and I wasn't training. All of a sudden, everybody was hurting their knees. So I just missed it. I just missed the major ones. But I got to learn from their experience, from their how it happened. A lot of times, it's guys are overtraining, and they just don't have the right amount of partners to go light. So it's good to go hard, but it's also too like if you just fought, you probably should not be going hard right after your fight. Your body went through the shock, and then all of a sudden you're going 100% again, trying to help your training partner get ready, and then you get injured. And so it's like things like that. You got to learn how to do it the right way, so you're not taking the injury, but your guy's still getting ready for his fight.
Okay, question 15. What's your proudest moment out of your fighting career?
I think my proudest moment out of my fighting career is, I think it's still that I chase the feeling of happiness in it. So even when I retired for a little, like I didn't retire fully, but like I never announced retirement, but I stopped fighting for a year when my dad passed, and I just kind of stayed away from it. I wasn't in the mood to fight. He came to me actually in my dream and was like, "Hey, I'm proud of you that you continued with your career." And so the next day I was up and I was at the gym again. But that was really the only time I've ever taken away from training, like where I didn't really want to do anything. I've always trained. I've always focused on training, even when I wasn't fighting or competing all the time. I'm always hitting the bag. I'm always doing something where it has to do with fighting. And I'm back to that feeling again. And even when I don't have a fight, or if I retire or whatever, once I'm done fighting, I know in me that I'm always going to be in there training. I'm always going to be doing something active with the fighting. And I think that's my proudest moment, that even though all these years have passed, I still love it as much as I did when I was a kid. And if I can show that to somebody, or have them experience that feeling that I've gone through with it, that'd be awesome for me to do. And so more likely I'm going to be coaching more as I start to go that opposite route.
Yeah, because you're actually a trainer now too, right? You train fighters now.
Yeah, I'm training. Right now I'm focusing on Sarah Valencia. She's an amateur fighter at 125, and Khalil Stokes. They're actually helped me get ready for these fights. So we just kind of go back and forth helping each other. I obviously have a lot more MMA experience, but they're really good strikers on their own already, and we're just sharpening up the tools, and I'm dropping the experience that I'd learned throughout the years there at Team Quest to them, the clinch, pretty much all the stuff that I've learned, the dirty boxing, the takedowns. We're just drilling and drilling and drilling, and they're going to start to make their mark soon. So it's kind of cool to see them getting better, So I'm enjoying that part of the fight game right now too.
Okay, question 16. If you didn't become a fighter, what profession do you think you'd be in right now?
I'm not sure. That's all I've ever done all my life, so that's kind of all I've always wanted to do. I think it's just something like, how it's something that you just grow up in. My uncles always put on boxing for us. Everything was like with combat or something with sports. So maybe soccer. I was pretty good at soccer too when I was a kid. So anything that's kind of like active and competitive, we've always kind of done. So even dirt bikes, we rode a lot of dirt bikes, especially in the area here. There's like a lot of motocross guys out of the area here. So like freestyle riding and stuff like that. So I don't know, anything like with sports, chances are that's what I'd be doing.
Okay, question 17. If the mayor of your city was willing to name something after you, what would you want named after you in your city?
I would love to have my own fight gym named after me. If they opened up a gym for me where it was like a YMCA kind of thing, where through charity we're getting funded there, I would love to do that, because I wouldn't want to charge the people from NFE. If that could be worked out, I would definitely do that. I would coach out of my area. Like I said, that's kind of the route I want to go. I know there's a lot of talent in this area. I think we're just built differently. Just it's hot as hell sometimes here, and so that just makes it tougher. You get used to a different climate. You get used to a different style of living, and if you learn how to work through some of these elements that we grew up here in, I think it translates well into sports. And like I said, there's a lot of athletes that have come out of this area, and I think it's because of that.
Okay. All right, question 18. If you could have dinner with any two athletes, alive or dead, who do you want to sit down and have dinner with?
I would still want to sit down and have a dinner with Julio Cesar Chavez. He was someone that I respected growing up, and just to be able to, like, if he would be willing to let me pick his brain on some of the setups and stuff that he would do to or that he would see in his setups, that would be awesome to experience that. So anybody else, probably like Cantinflas. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a Mexican comedian. But man, that guy was crazy funny. So even just to maybe like meet somebody like that, obviously that'd be like out of the ordinary. So those would probably be the two people that I would want to meet.
Okay. Question 19. Do you have any phobias?
Hmm. Not that I know of. Not that I know of. The only thing that I could say that I've been afraid of more is probably heights. Like, heights is probably my thing, but I do shit that I don't mind going up there. I think so. Like anything that kind of like I get frightened of, I'll do it just because it's like conquering that fear. So like I don't like heights, but I'll do it. I've done it just
Okay.
just to kind of conquer that fear.
All right. Question 20. Your last question. What's something that your bare knuckle boxing fans don't know about you?
I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Like I said, we grew up fighting here, so it wasn't like an easy fight. These guys, we all knew some form of combat in the area here. So our street fights were really, really like MMA fights. I'm a better street fighter than I am an actual like technical fighter. I can be technical, but when it comes to that dog being brought out of me, um, like I said, I can go to that out of body experience. And when you can do that, I think that makes you a little more dangerous than the average guy. Just because I know that the fear portion of I think my old trainer would say, um, your will to win has to supersede your fear of losing. And I know how to master that. I've mastered that. And my will to win is a lot stronger than my fear of losing. And so when I go out there and I let it go, it's beautiful. It's art.
Okay. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you taking time to come on and do the 20 random questions. I hope you didn't have an issue with any of the questions. I think the fans learned quite a bit about you today in 20 questions. And if you got anything to say to the fans or your sponsors, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to all my people that support me. Like obviously my training partners, Sarah Valencia, Khalil Stokes, Tarek Safardine. He's the coach in the striking class. He lets the guys do boxing with me. That's over at Dan Henderson's Athletic Fitness Center in Temecula. So pretty much all my guys that support me and help me out, and my sponsors is Esparza Plastering, CVAC, um, uh, Vasquez is landscaping, and all the guys that have pretty much just been backing me throughout the years. Pachanga Resort and Casino, thank you guys. They've always been there to kind of allow me to shine. I fought there quite a bit of times through Bellator, through the WFC, now through BKFC. Um, these Indian reservations in the area have allowed us to shine, and so I really, really want to give those guys thanks. And also, if you guys ever need me to work with you guys, just let me know. Get in contact with me. I'll help you guys out whenever.
Anything to say to your fans before we end?
Hey guys, to my fans, I love you guys. Thanks for supporting, and we got a lot more great fights to come. Like I said, I'm getting better, and the more and more comfortable I get in that sport circle, the better fights I'm going to give you guys. So look forward to it, and look forward to giving you guys great fights.
All right, hold on. And with that, the truth has spoken.